Hi everyone, I'm Diana and welcome back to Chronic Harmony, where chronic illness meets artistry, honesty, and healing. Today we are talking with the lovely Callista Popp, and I'm very excited to have her on today talking about OCD and anxiety. So let's just dive in and get started. Callista, can you go ahead and introduce yourself? Who are you and how do we know each other?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Callista Popp, born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. I went out to the East Coast for college, came back here, and Diane and I met when we started working together at a bridal shop this past summer. I think I started in June. Diana had started before me, but we connected pretty instantly on a bunch of different things. And when she reached out to me to talk about this topic of like OCD and anxiety, I was really excited and thrilled to share some of my insight.
Yeah, we totally just connected right away. When I first met Callista, she's just super cute, bubbly, just has the best sense of style, the best closet. And I looked at her, I'm like, yeah, I want us to be friends. So before we talk about diagnoses, who are you as a person?
Yeah, so God, who am I? I'm like a whole conglomerate of different things, as you probably have become aware getting to know me, Diana. Like she mentioned, we're both bridal stylists. I'm very into fashion. Specifically, like I've been obsessed with bridal for a while. So I was really excited to start that job and kind of get a little bit of experience in the bridal industry and have a little bit of fun before I actually go back to law school. I worked in corporate America for about 2 years at two different retailer companies. I It's kind of been a weird change. I grew up thinking like I would be in business or like some sort of business meets retail, whatever. And as I actually got experience in those industries, I was a little bit turned off by what I have experienced. A lot of people's experiences are very different from mine. But I have decided to go back to law school. And Diana actually went to Capital, and that's where I'm going with a scholarship in the fall. So very excited.
Yay!
Um,
Congratulations again.
you. So right now I'm kind of in between area, working at the bridal shop, doing something more fun, while also like mentally preparing myself to go through law school. It's a lot, but honestly, it kind of ties back to that OCD and anxiety topic because what really started to get me interested in law was the Americans with Disabilities Act and the
Mm.
mental health policies that we have and or we are lacking, and how that impacted my college experience and then just my experience as a human in general. So part of my interest in law definitely is in that field. There's a bunch of other areas too, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Like she said, I'm very bubbly, very personable. I love the color pink. It's one of my favorite colors. I actually surprisingly don't have, I'm wearing it right now, thank God. But I was like, I need to get more pink in my closet. So I'm currently working on that. Um, Yes, it's very true. I like need more pink of all the different shades. I like hot pink, light pink, baby pink, all the pinks. And then I have a little dog. She is my certified emotional support animal, actually. I got her when I was first diagnosed with OCD. Her name is Posey. She's a huge part of my life, and I love her very much. Let's see, what else can I tell you? I have a partner of like almost 6 years, who's also been with me through this whole just like life journey, but also he has stuck with me through a lot of the OCD and anxiety diagnoses that I've gotten. And so he really understands that. And it's a huge part of why, I don't know why our relationship is so strong. And I'm sure you can relate a little bit.
It's it definitely makes a world of difference when you have somebody who loves you unconditionally and can love you in those highs and also those lows because especially in those lows you can feel so unlovable or you feel like a burden and you're just like, why are you still here right now? And it's just like, because I love you, because you're my person and I want you to be okay and I want you to be well. So it's definitely having that person by you through that is so, so important.
Right. Just like that extra supportive kind of beam in your
Absolutely.
house.
So, let's start at the beginning. It's a very good place to start, as Sound of
Yeah.
Music likes to say. What were the first signs or symptoms that
Um,
you noticed?
Gosh. So my first really like symptoms, I don't know, like I'm not a licensed psychologist or psychiatrist or anything like that, but my first like experience with mental health, like anxiety, panic disorder, it might have been a little bit of OCD, was probably back when I was in like the third grade. My parents had gone on a weekend trip to New York City, and I had almost like what I would call felt like a vision, like it was
Mm,
going to happen. And I think that's kind of a magical thinking subtype of OCD. Like I had that thought, so it was going to happen. I had this just like feeling that my parents were going to get in a plane crash and die, and they would like I would never see them again when they were flying back from New York City. And I flipped a lid, like so much so that I still remember it to this day. I also
mm,
have asthma, but I was running around the house with my poor grandmother watching us, screaming, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. And it wasn't my asthma, it was really a panic attack. And the reason or how we knew that was I took my asthma medication. And when you take it, if you didn't need it, you get really, really shaky. And so
mm.
I was laying in my parents' bed trying to just like calm down, and I was just shaking from my asthma medication. And yeah, I mean, it was just a weird occurrence. And um, I was just like, I've always been kind of an anxious kid, but that was like really the first time I can nail down in my head where I was like, oh, shoot, like, what is this? Um,
Mhm.
and for me, it's always been the case where it'll pop up and then it will go away. Like it'll literally go dormant. Like I'll be a completely normal person for sometimes years at a time. And that's what's made it really hard to catch is it's like sometimes, especially growing up, like it would literally like that kind of thing would happen, like what happened when I first noticed something was off. And then it like completely just went dormant for like 3 years.
I can't imagine how stressful as a child that would be to just have that kind of intrusive thought come in
Yeah.
and you don't understand why that's happening and the logic part of your brain, we're still developing as children, so I can't imagine how stressful and anxiety inducing that would
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially with the OCD part where it makes you feel, and this is like a pattern that's carried on throughout my life too, is whatever the intrusive thought is, it makes it feel like it is really real. It is
Mm.
really going to happen. And that is probably easily the most terrifying part of it. Like you have no control at all.
So as you're going through like elementary school, middle school, high school, what other symptoms are you feeling during this time? What is normal for you? Tell us a little bit about that part of your story.
Yeah. So the next time my anxiety and OCD really popped up again was in the sixth grade. Um, in the fall, I was just like, it was kind of double-edged, or like there were two different things going on. I was really sick. I grew into my allergies. Unfortunately, I'm allergic to over like 52 things.
Oh my
And
goodness.
my allergies are asthma linked. So when I
Mm,
have an allergic reaction to something, I also get my asthma. And we didn't figure, like we were in the middle of finding this out, and I was tired all the time because I literally wasn't getting enough oxygen. And
mhm,
um I remember I was like, I would lay in bed all day, and then when I tried to get up to walk around, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so dizzy. Um, and we just didn't really know what was going on. It might have been like a combination of the flu as well or strep throat. I just remember like we went to my family doctor a lot. And eventually they said, okay, it's probably your asthma. They did an asthma treatment in the doctor's office, which made me feel worlds better. I got
mm,
an allergist, so things got figured out. But at the same time, in tandem with that, my mom also had this fear. So my mom also has anxiety, like just side note. My mom had this fear that I had developed leukemia, which is
mm.
terrifying. I've always had like a terrible fear of cancer and just like being that kind of sick. Um, So one day after we dropped my brother off at a little birthday party for one of his classmates, I remember I fell asleep in the car again because, again, I wasn't getting enough oxygen in my blood. And I woke up and we were outside of the ER at Riverside. And I was like, Mom, what are we doing here? And she goes, I just want to take you in and get your blood tested real quick. I'll buy you a toy or whatever you want from Toys R Us or whatever was open at the time.
Mhm.
I'll get you, a new pair of shoes, a bag, I don't know, something, whatever I wanted with sixth grade me. But I said, okay, let's go in. And I kept asking her, but why do you want to get my blood? Like, why do you want to do this as we were walking up? And finally she goes, because I think you might have leukemia. And of course, we get to the testing, the lab area, and it's closed. And it wasn't opening until tomorrow. And
Mm.
so we went back home, and my mom was like, no, the next morning, she was like, I changed my mind. Like, I don't think you need to do it. Um, and then after we got like all the information from the doctors, we had a better understanding of what was going on with me too. Didn't have leukemia, but
That's
this,
good.
this triggered in me something that I could not let go of for probably like 2 months. I was absolutely terrified that I actually did have leukemia or that
Mm.
I was developing it and I was going to actually have leukemia and I was going to die. I had a little flip phone at the time, and I remember this was like one of my compulsions coming out before we knew it was OCD. I would text my mom and be like, are you sure I don't have leukemia? I'm feeling tired. I would text my dad. I'm like, are you sure I don't have leukemia? You know, um, constantly for probably about 2 months. I probably drove him insane. And my mom was like, you passed with flying colors. Like, I don't think we need to get your blood tested anymore. You seem like you're doing fine now. But it kind of triggered this ongoing, still to this day, health anxiety that I struggle with. Anytime I get sick, anytime I feel like overly tired or just like lightheaded,
Mhm.
now it triggers a panic attack. But that's kind of where that root cause of that kind of started growing. And then, like I said, after we got the doctor's results back, I was like, okay, I was just freaking out because I thought I had leukemia. Like, that's pretty scary. It's pretty normal to be freaked out about that. Um,
Absolutely.
and I talked to my school psychologist. I didn't really see a therapist yet because it really hadn't come to that point, I guess, in my parents' minds and in my mind where I was like, I need to go like have extra help. I can just go see the school psychologist during lunch and whatnot. And it kind of went dormant again for a
Mm.
couple of years. There was a little blip in the 8th grade when my uncle got diagnosed with glioblastoma. I was really struggling with that. I was very upset, very sad, because it was bad enough, like, he was gonna die. That was what was gonna kill him.
Mhm.
And I was so fed up with my homeroom, I ran to my best friend's homeroom and just hung out with her because I just, like, you're an 8th grader and your uncle's got a big brain tumor and he just
Yeah.
passed, you know? And so I went there, and my homeroom teacher came and found me afterward, and she gave me 2 detentions for leaving her classroom without asking, and I was just like, another thing with OCD is the excessive guilt you feel, and I was always like two shoes. I was like, this is not, you know, it wasn't that big of a deal, but in the moment when she gave me 2 detentions, I was like, I never had detentions. Anyways, yeah, I mean, I felt so guilty. My mom was like, "What the heck are you so like, it's just detention. Who cares?" I'm like, "I feel so guilty. I can't even handle it right now." And so that kind of is what my anxiety and OCD started feeding off of.
Mhm.
Again, I like to say like it went dormant through high school until high school, like around my sophomore year. But honestly, looking back with the knowledge I have now, I had an eating disorder. Like, I was completely anorexic. I was like 110 pounds
Mm.
going into my freshman year. I would run all this like 6 miles every day, eat like nothing. And that, I think, kind of is where my OCD lived for a while.
Mm.
It was so bad. Like, I was like, I'm fine. I've always been the person to be like, I'm fine, it's fine, everything's fine. I didn't get my period for like a year and a half. I had started it in 7th grade, and then when I lost like 20 or 30 pounds, and I was playing field hockey, swimming, running, I didn't get it for like a year and a half. And I
Wow.
tried talking to our family doctor, and I wouldn't admit that like I wasn't eating. I was like, yeah, I eat.
Mm.
I just work out a lot. And so, yeah, I mean, honestly, like that definitely was kind of where I had to. It was where my anxiety and OCD sat until about, God, a year. I want to say right after my sophomore year is when it got really bad. I was in this relationship with this guy. So where I went to school, we did K through 12 together. And I had a crush on him on and off since like third grade. And finally I started dating him, and it was great until I remembered and felt guilty for some of the things that I sent my last boyfriend. I dated someone the summer before my sophomore year, and I just made some bad decisions. And I was like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. Why would I ever send those things to him? Why would I ever do that? I feel awful. My current boyfriend would like not want to be with me if he knew what I had done. And so I was like compulsively confessing bits and pieces of what I like, the different things I did with this last boyfriend. But one point, very poignant part of it was probably in July of 2017. We were in Palm Beach, and I just could not stop obsessing. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I did these things. I need to tell my boyfriend. I need to like make sure that it's okay. I feel so guilty. And I went for a walk on the beach, and I just got slammed with this like religious OCD too, where it's like, I was like, I'm talking to God, trying to figure out how the hell I can make this stop in my head, because it was nonstop. Finally, it just felt like all I can do to make this stop is break up with my current boyfriend, which is like the exact opposite of what I really wanted to do. So I was like losing my mind in a cloud of intrusive thoughts. I just remember I was curled up in the corner of our hotel and just crying. I was like, I don't know what to do anymore. That's kind of when my parents and I decided to take me to the therapist that my brother was actually seeing for occupational therapy. She was also like a childhood therapist. And she was great. I really love her. And then I also started seeing a psychiatrist because when my junior year, the fall of my junior year rolled around, it wasn't getting any better. It was like every time I beat one thought, another one would come up. And then I also remember something that really set it off too was one of my friends in the middle of one of our classes had like a grand mal seizure. You know, with my health anxiety and everything else going on, that was kind of like the cherry on top. And we decided to start medication just to try and help this anxiety. And the first diagnosis I got was just generalized anxiety disorder and then post-traumatic stress disorder from what happened with my first relationship. And there's just a lot of stuff there. Was traumatic for a little 14-year-old girl. Anyways, so we treated it like it was generalized anxiety disorder for the most part. And eventually, like, we got steady on the medications and it went dormant. And I was just kind of like living my life. I remember the first semester of my senior year of high school, it was just great. My friends were great. Boyfriend was great. You know, we won field hockey state championship, blah, blah, blah. Everything was great. Like, I was like, God, this is awesome. I got into Villanova. I was like, this is great.
Mm-hmm.
So come January, I don't know if this is intertwined. It probably is. I got really sick again with some sort of like cold, cough. Like I couldn't breathe. I had to use my like massive asthma machine that I hadn't used in years. All this stuff, just physically sick, and trying to like make it to swimming's district championships because I was like, it's my last year. I'm hacking up a lung, but I will do it. And I made it to that. A week after that, I was like getting better, but I lost my virginity to him, and I freaked the freak out. The biggest like freak out of my life to that point. I've only had one other since then that has like compared, but I was like, all the like guilty thoughts that had been kind of dormant, like I said, came rushing back. I was just laying there in my boyfriend's basement. He went up to make like a frozen pizza, no idea what was going on. I literally couldn't even like articulate what I was going through. I just felt like, oh my God, oh my God, what have I done? Oh my God, my parents are going to be
Mm.
so disappointed in me. Oh my God, this is horrible. I'm a horrible person. I need to go home. I need to tell them to make sure that it's not as bad as I think it will be. So he came back downstairs and I was like, I just need to go home. Like, I just need to go home. So I went home and my parents knew something was wrong as soon as I went in the door. And I couldn't, like, they knew. It wasn't like I could hide it from them. They knew. And they knew, like, I had thought about it. My mom really didn't want me to do it because she knew this would happen. And
And are both of your parents doctors or just one?
both of them are.
Okay.
But I remember sending like a super frantic email to my psychiatrist that night too, being like, I just did this. I am freaking out. I don't know what to do. Just like full-fledged, massive freak out. And she was like, okay, you can take some Benadryl to help until I can get you in on Monday. And I was like, okay, great. So I just became a Benadryl junkie for like 2 days. Because it just like made you fall asleep. It was like the most,
Yeah.
when you're just in like full on freak out mode, especially because I had no idea what was going on. And I just was like, this can't, that was my first start, the first start of like, this can't just be generalized anxiety disorder because we're
Mm.
doing all this stuff to help it. And it's not like it's getting worse. And then a couple weeks later, I was still dealing with it like crazy. And I had this one intrusive thought that was like, what if I just kill myself?
Mm.
Whew. Full on freak out. That was never me, never has been me. The suicidal thing was never that was never truly me. That was like definitely a subset of OCD kind of rearing its ugly head. But I could not get rid of it because it's like my worst fear, that and like harming other people.
Mm.
My worst fears. And so the thing with the OCD was that it made it feel like it literally makes you feel like you're just gonna lose control, pick up a knife and stab yourself. And it drove me insane because they were like, oh, it's just generalized anxiety disorder. My school psychologist said that. My psychiatrist said that.
Mm.
I'm like, I don't know if I was explaining it the wrong way, but I was like, I feel like I'm just gonna kill myself. And I don't know why.
Mm.
I freaked the freak out for months, like probably until about maybe May or June. I just kind of strong armed my way through it. And it was so hard. I would leave school all the time just to like get out and like just drive or something just to calm myself down a little bit. Couldn't sleep. I was just having all these crazy thoughts like, what if this is happening because God wants me to kill myself? Like, is this his plan for me? Because it feels so real. It feels like it's really going to happen. So I sounded crazy. I sound crazy saying those things, but that's truly what OCD does. I made it through graduation. It was really hard. Like I'm fast forwarding through it, and we don't have the time to detail my everyday. But every day today, it was just really a struggle. And so finally, after strong arming my way through it, still not knowing it's OCD, by the way, it kind of just lay dormant again. And it did that through my first year of college, through my sophomore year of college. And I think part of that was because that's when the pandemic hit. And so I had all this other stuff going on. I was back home. I was with all my support beams, whatever. I had started a new relationship at that point. A lot of things were happening at once. And so it was just kind of like dormant, just chilling. I was like, oh, great. I beat it. Like, this is awesome. And then my junior year of college, this was really when it hit the fan. And I had made really fast best friends with these two girls who I was rooming with. But it was just like a rocky time for us. And we lived in a little apartment on campus together. And one night I was on TikTok watching these just like courtroom stupid episodes of baloney with like inmates and stuff and in the court, whatever. And I had that just like intrusive thought where the ones where it's like the start of a full blown meltdown, it feels like a searing hot knife just like slicing through your brain. That's the best way I can describe a really bad intrusive thought. It's like something just it's the worst. And like, what if I become like that, like a killer? What if there's knives in my kitchen? What if I pick up one of those knives and stab my roommate? And I was like, oh my God. Because the OCD, again, makes it feel very real.
Yeah.
You feel like
Yeah.
it's really going to happen. And I just lost it. I just absolutely, I couldn't sleep that night. I called my mom and I told her exactly what would happen. She goes, that's crazy. And I was like, yeah, but I can't make, like, it won't go away. That's the thing with OCD, is that it doesn't go away unless you do your compulsions, which then it'll come back again, or
Yeah.
later you learn about exposure therapy. So fast forward a couple weeks, I tried to like strong arm it out. My parents really didn't want me to come home. I made it to fall break, went home for fall break. My roommate and she was having a really hard time understanding what I was going through, which is understandable because I didn't really understand what I was going through.
Mm-hmm.
But I found out that she had been going around to other kids at school and telling them that I wanted to kill people. And I was like, great. I was like, yep, that's exactly, right. And so when I came back from fall break that Monday, we just kind of had a long conversation about it. When we ended the conversation, we thought that like it had been resolved. And when I woke up the next morning, I was like, I just can't do this. Like, I can't do this anymore. I need to go home. I need to figure out what the F is going on because I can't keep living like this, even though a productive conversation with my roommate. So I was like, I need to go home. And I think she took that personally, but it's what's best for me and I don't regret it to this day.
Yeah.
And when I got home, I mean, that's the lowest point in my life I've ever been. I just laid on my bed and I was like, what the flip do we do now? I had part of me in my head was like, maybe it's OCD. I don't really know why exactly that like came up in my brain, but there was a girl on YouTube. Part of the reason why I'm sharing my story today is because you can, find people with shared experiences on YouTube. And part of the reason why I got that my diagnosis now is because of this random girl on YouTube who was talking about an OCD, and she was talking about what she was going through. And I was like, wait a minute, this sounds exactly like what I've been experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was able to get in with a new psychiatrist locally. And I just remember talking to him for the first time. And it was like everything that I had experienced was like validated, in that it was OCD the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's just really sneaky and really hard to catch. Especially I think with the way that I was describing it. I give my treatment providers a lot of grace because I don't know, not everybody knows about OCD and all the different ways it presents itself, but also it also depends on how you're explaining your experience. So I don't blame them at all. But it was very validating to get that, like, yes, this is OCD. And then he was able to match me with an OCD like specialist, which is so
Oh,
funny.
that's awesome.
Yeah, because both of them were right down the road from where I grew up. So I was like, oh, this is great. And we were able to start exposure response prevention therapy, which is like the classic, treatment for OCD. And that completely changed my life.
Wow.
And I got better really, really quickly after we figured out what it was and how to treat it. I didn't change my medication, which this in a minute this will come up. I didn't change my medication, but I was like feeling ready enough to go back to school for the second semester. I moved off campus, got my little dog Posey, had all these like support people, my therapist, my OCD specialist, psychiatrist, like right at my fingertips, basically on my phone. Everyone was rooting for me to, get through this. They didn't want me to leave Villanova, but I didn't leave Villanova. I finished my degree out there. But there was a hiccup my senior year in the fall. I had just another episode. I just felt like the thoughts would never stop. Like my head was never quiet. It was like it didn't matter what kind of exposure response prevention therapy I did. It didn't matter like how many times I met with my therapist. The intrusive thoughts would never stop. And that was so daunting to me. and terrifying, I was like, okay, maybe we should try another medication. So I just started researching medication. Somehow I came across one of the oldest ones in the book, which is what I'm on now. It's Nafranil. Life changing. I've been on it ever since. Don't ever go off of it without your doctor's approval because you will get terrible withdrawal. But it's completely changed my life. And not a lot of people I know are on it, probably because it's older, but there's been such a reduction in the intrusive thoughts that, I mean, like, I get them every once in a while, but it's not like that sharp, searing pain through my brain anymore. It's just something like, oh, yeah, there's one. That's kind of weird. I haven't had one in a while. Okay, moving on.
That's incredible that from the exposure therapy and having a psychiatrist and then into finding the right medication for you. Even just how you're telling the story, I can tell there's a breath of fresh air around how you're talking about it. And it feels like there was such a weight lifted off because I can't imagine how almost debilitating it would be to feel like your own mind and your own body is battling itself for what's actually real and what's actually happening. Because, of course, your intrusive thoughts, logically that they're not real. It's like a little pin that just keeps pricking you over and over and over again, and it won't go away. And after a while, like what you said, you feel insane, even though logically the difference.
And that's probably the most maddening part of all of it, is that you know what it is. You know that it's an intrusive thought, and OCD will fight as much as it can to make it feel real, but it's still painful. It's still difficult, Even that's something I had to learn too once I got my diagnosis and started treatment, was like, I know what this is. I know how to treat it, but it doesn't mean that it's going to completely stop all the intrusive thoughts. That was a really hard step and hard part to overcome. And thankfully, with the medication that I'm on, I don't have a lot of those thoughts like constantly overwhelming me, which is a huge difference, because for me, I learned how to deal with the thoughts like exposure response prevention, and it just got exhausting when there were so many. You're like overwhelmed. With the medication, it cleared a lot of that up, where I don't have to constantly be like, okay, this is that, here's how I'm going to deal with it, and then like 5 minutes later, oh, there's another one, okay, got to do this, here we go. That part got exhausting after about a year of doing that over and over and over again. I was like, we need to do something in addition.
Thank you so much for sharing. I'm sure it's not easy to talk about, and I really appreciate you being so open and honest about your experience. I'm sure you would feel alone and just scared from your own thoughts.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people have thoughts on what OCD is. You have the stereotypes of opening and closing a door a certain amount of times. How would you describe what you go through?
A lot of what I go through, honestly, people would probably call pure OCD, which is like, it seems like you only have the obsessions without the compulsions. But the funny thing is, I do have compulsions. It's just not as visible. So, for example, people who like keep their pencils in a line or whatever, they're doing that, like that's their visible compulsion, right? So, and it's not just like a quirk. It's like if they don't put their pencils in this certain like order, their mom's going to die or something terrible is going to happen. That obsession is what's driving that visible physical compulsion. So in my head, and part of why it was so overwhelming to deal with obsessive thoughts was because my compulsion was also checking my thoughts, reviewing my thoughts. I was always in my brain. So I'd have an intrusive thought and be like, oh, do I really feel that way? Okay, how do I, what evidence do we have that this is going to become real? And part of that was encouraged by the treatment used for generalized anxiety disorder, like trying to rationalize your thoughts. And that really fed into these kind of invisible compulsions that I would have, or like just, compulsions I keep private to myself, checking with my mom, or like compulsively confessing certain things to my parents. And it doesn't mean, just because you can't see someone's compulsions or you like don't understand it exactly doesn't mean it's
Mhm.
not as traumatizing, just as traumatizing, if not more, than those people who do have the physical compulsions. The thing that gets misrepresented about OCD all the time, regardless of like, if you're talking about the stereotype or not, is that it's just like a little personality quirk. Like
Mhm.
that's not it. There is something very serious, very heavy, and very terrifying going on in that person's head that is driving whatever physical compulsion they're doing. When you can see it, like it's not just like I need to be clean. It's like, no, if I don't clean this counter the right way, my mom will get sick and she will die. You know,
Mhm.
that's part of what people don't, because it's not, people don't talk about it because it's not as entertaining in a way. It's not as like, it's not funny. People don't want to talk about that side of it, which this is another reason why I'm so open about what I have been through and what I deal with on
Mhm.
a daily basis. Because for the longest time, too, what prevented me from getting my OCD diagnosis was this understanding that, oh, I don't keep my room like super organized and clean. Same thing, like I'm sure part of what prevented my parents from seeing it early on is because we all have that stereotype where it's like, oh, you don't keep things in order. It can't be OCD. It just can't. And that's not true, which for a lot of people in the OCD community, like that is, cleanliness is not a part of any of our compulsions, which is really interesting.
Kind of debunking those stereotypes is very important, especially for the invisible illnesses,
Yeah.
because you can look at someone and think, "Oh, they're a healthy human being," when in reality there's a war happening inside of their mind.
Right. Right. Which is crazy. I've been there. My mom has had breast cancer. Seeing her physically ill is one thing, but I guess in terms of her anxiety and like the repercussions from that, there's studies coming out showing that OCD is more and more genetically linked. And
Mm.
she's never seen a psychiatrist or anything like that, but seeing how that has kind of derailed her mind, she's still struggling with so much even now, but you can't see it. People don't think about it the same way. And it's not like cancer. I mean, it's not, I mean, it can be life threatening at a certain point, when you get to the point of like suicide or something like that, which is horrible. But, you know, you look like a physically healthy human being, but there's just so much darkness and intrusive thoughts just constantly pinging around. It's hard because when you are experiencing life that way where you present normally outside, like physically present you look pretty normal and healthy, people treat you like that. Like for example, when I would be in college classes, I'd be struggling with something like an intrusive thought or just feeling like I was going to pass out or have a panic attack or something, and all I wanted to do was just step out of the classroom and regain
Mhm.
my composure or whatever. And sometimes I would just step out, come back, and the feeling would return in 5 minutes. And it's like people see me as this normal person. I can't be stepping out of the classroom multiple times because people think I'm nuts.
You're dealing with something that they
Don't know,
can't even fathom,
right? They don't
right?
understand, and they don't know how to deal with it, which is like the hardest part of dealing with these like invisible illnesses, like you said, is people just don't understand at all, at all. Like my dad, I bless his heart. I've explained it to the OCD thing so many times to him, and he's like, I just don't understand it, but I will do what I can to support you. And
Mm.
honestly, I'm like, if we had more people like that in the world where it's like you don't have to understand it. You don't need to wrap your whole head around it. Like, and I get that it's so hard for some people to understand. I understand that. But I just need you to support me in whatever I need to do
Mhm.
to just
Absolutely.
survive.
What have you had to relearn? Like if you could talk to young Callista in elementary through high school, even throughout college, what did you have to relearn? What would you tell her?
God, oh man. In hindsight, I want to say like it's not that big of a deal. You don't need to feel so guilty about everything. It's just not just, but it is OCD and there's a way to
Mm.
deal with it. I think a big part of like growing up with the anxiety and stuff would be made so much better if we had known that it was OCD from the start. Um, Because like I mentioned before, when you're diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, a lot of the therapy treatments, mind patterns, and things that you go through actually make OCD worse for you.
Mm,
And that's something that I didn't know until I had OCD. And I was like, well, that makes sense because when I would try to, sometimes with GAD, they would say, rationalize your thoughts, rationalize your intrusive thoughts. And I would try to do that, and I would just get further and further down my rabbit hole. And I was like, why is this
mm,
working? It's just making it worse. God, I'm crazy. I think the biggest thing is I would wish that I knew it was OCD. It would change the way I managed my thoughts, and it would change the way I approached certain situations, and that I would have a level of calmness to it, knowing that whatever this feeling is that's making it feel really real is just my OCD. Not to be like
mm,
just, but you're not crazy. You're not psychotic. You just have obsessive compulsive disorder. I keep saying just, but it's not just, but it would have been very relieving to have an accurate diagnosis. In college, kind of the same thing. It's hard to say because I didn't know that I had OCD. Um,
right.
and I did kind of like, I think I would say just like go with what your gut is saying, and that you have this inkling that it might be OCD. Yeah, keep going after that. I think also for someone who's kind of in that in between area of like, I don't know if it's just anxiety or if it's really OCD, just go with your gut, I guess. If you
Mm-hmm.
know that something is wrong and you think you might know what it is, keep pushing for it. We're all human. We all, you know, don't always make the right choices, don't always make the right diagnoses. If you have a thought or an inkling, bring it up, talk to your
Absolutely.
therapist about it. Don't just let it kind of sit there, because the biggest change is, and the biggest difference that I've had in my journey is when I stood up for myself and said, I have this inkling that it might be OCD, or I found this article that said Nafranil works really well for quieting the thoughts.
Mm,
If you find something, just keep on, pushing it until you either get to a point where it's actually, this is really helping me, or until it's getting to a point where it's like, this is not going to be helpful for me. You know,
yeah. Keep searching for those answers.
if they're out there.
It feels common knowledge to be like, oh, yeah, be honest with your doctor. But going into an appointment, how many times do you totally forget
Right.
all of those symptoms that you're dealing with? And they say the typical, do you have any other questions or any other concerns? It's like, yes, I did.
But I
I
can't.
probably should have written it down because I don't remember anymore because I'm coming in, I'm feeling fine. It's just a normal yearly checkup.
Yeah.
And I know I had all of these other concerns, but sometimes keeping track, keeping a list of these are things I really want to discuss with my doctor, and just diving into that research, but not obsessing at the same time. This was a really great conversation. I
Thanks.
thank you so much for being so open and honest. I know it's not easy, but I think other people who are dealing with OCD, or who might have a family member um, dealing with something similar who might not be diagnosed, this could be really eye-opening to the OCD community, because it's always very relieving when you find somebody who relates to you, to your experience.
Right. It's so helpful. It's been, getting on this community called No CD, and just like having a community of people who also struggle with OCD and just being able to talk to them has been life changing, honestly.
Hmm.
It's so nice to just be able to reach out and be like, have you ever gone through this? How did you handle it? When you have, especially when you have like a new theme pop up. And I've been lucky enough to find a few people in my life that are physically around me where I can be like, I'm struggling with this. Like, can we meet up for coffee and talk about it?
Hmm.
Um, and again, it kind of goes back to like when I was really down in the dumps, like at my worst point in my life, probably finding that YouTube video and just being able to be like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I'm going through. And kind of in that circle, giving back to the community in this
Hmm.
kind of way where I'm sharing my story. Because for the longest time, I wouldn't talk about it at all. Like, all through college. I would not, have said a word. It was too terrifying for me. I was too scared of the judgment. Now that I've been further out of it and had more time and space to process everything, it's been a lot easier to open up.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know myself, like I know I'm not insane. And also I just think with the mental health community and ending the stigma and whatnot, people are becoming more welcoming and open to these ideas um, and stories from other people who have really struggled with all sorts of mental health struggles.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And how important it is to talk about it.
yeah,
Um,
it's very soothing to just sharing my story and hoping that someone out there will relate to it is very full circle moment, first of all. Second of all, very soothing for me. And I just hope it helps somebody.
yeah, absolutely. It's a very cathartic experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially
Yeah.
when you're further out from it. Cause I remember if you had asked me probably 5 years ago to do this, I'd be like, heck no. I'm not sharing anything.
Yeah, yeah,
But now that I have, I feel like I have a pretty good handle on it. And I know there's still going to be blips in the road. That's just how it goes.
absolutely.
Um, it's a lot easier to share my story. I guess if you're an OCD sufferer, keep pushing for the medication that suits you because there's one out there. There's so many different ones to try. It's a long process, but you'll find something. Keep pushing for diagnoses. If you're not sure if you have OCD or not, keep being honest and open about what you're experiencing. And the biggest thing for all my people who are out there who don't struggle with OCD but have a friend or a family member that do, you may not always understand it, but all we want is your support and your love while we go
Mhm.
through whatever it is that we go through. We don't need you to understand it. It's nice if you do, but as long as you can support them in the best, just like hugging them or something like that, that's really the best you can do. And that's okay.
That's awesome. I think that's a really great place to end it. Thank you again so much, Callista.
Yeah, of course.